This is Luke Paulson, the Catholic Conservative, and welcome to the news of the week for May 31st, 2025. And if you enjoy these videos, do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. America's Golden Dome. We are all familiar with Israel's Iron Dome. Because their enemies have decided to shoot missiles into civilian areas for no good reason, Israel has to shoot missiles to intercept the enemy missiles. However, Israel's missiles are much more expensive. But according to the Jewish News Syndicate, or JNS, a system to shoot the enemy missiles down via laser should be ready for launch by the year's end. According to President Trump, we are at risk for similar missile attacks at home. Not to mention our foreign bases that may or may not be infringing on the sovereignty of other nations, as well as our ships around the globe. We have ground-based missile systems to protect our military installations, but they are not always in the right place or at the right angle. And our ships are another story. As such, President Trump is launching a Golden Dome around America. This will use space-based missiles to take out enemy missiles. This is the realization that President John F. Kennedy had of his so-called Star Wars program. Now, while I want to trust President Trump, he is not infallible, especially when he is in the swamp. We cannot rule out that the generals are telling him that a much more expensive space-based system is the best option, because they are getting payouts from the military-industrial complex. And remember what President Dwight Eisenhower said,
"Beware the military-industrial complex."
Coincidentally, Elon Musk may completely leave the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, to focus on his businesses. I want to believe him, but there may be an ulterior motive. DOGE is Muskless. It is no secret that DOGE was brought to the forefront because of Musk. He is the one who really helped to create the idea and led it through some of its greatest moments thus far. However, Musk has decided to start working with DOGE part-time to devote more time to his businesses, which are continually and literally under attack by unhinged liberals. Reportedly, his stockholders want him to return to Tesla. However, if Musk completely steps down and is no longer with DOGE officially, he and SpaceX can get a contract for the Golden Dome. With a username like Catholic Conservative, you might expect me to give blanket support to both of these patriots. And not to condemn either, but I value truth and honesty more than anything else. However, in the pursuit of honesty, I need to talk about how Democrats are defaming the big, beautiful bill. SALT for Californians. SALT stands for State and Local Tax Deduction. While it is far from the best acronym, it was a necessary compromise to get some of the last holdouts in the House to support the big, beautiful bill. Because blue states decide to tax their citizens unholy amounts to cover all of the illegal government programs, this will allow the people there to deduct their state and local taxes up to $40,000. I hear that the average Californian pays thousands upon thousands of dollars in taxes. If that is what the average person pays, how much do the millionaires and billionaires pay? It is no wonder that so many people are fleeing that state. And it is no wonder that Governor Gavin Newsom wants them to pay an exit tax. He wants those tax dollars. So in other words, with this compromise, people are saving even more than they would before the promises that our president already made. Thus, every Democrat and Rhino is literally voting against lower taxes. I can only wonder how they justify that in their minds. Especially since even if we taxed every millionaire and billionaire at 100% of their income, we could run the federal government for about 3 months. The problem is not with income, but with spending. Either way, this will not stop the Democrats from lying about the big, beautiful bill for no good reason, even saying that it will gut Medicare, a claim that even CNN reported as false. As such, let us switch to some of their other and at times more serious lies, starting with getting rid of all of these illegals. Willingly going home. $1,000 is a significant chunk of change, and it is even more valuable in countries like Honduras. According to ChatGPT, this could provide a comfortable living for about a month, while also providing for a bit of leisure as well as an emergency buffer. Now, why is all of that important? Project Homecoming is already underway, and many people are going back to Honduras. They are given a free ride there, the aforementioned $1,000, and the potential to return legally later. This is much better than having to be hunted down by Immigration and Customs Enforcement or ICE, or having to be hidden by a corrupt judge. And it is a lot cheaper too. Fun fact, the crime rate is at a historic low in Chicago after thousands of Venezuelans were deported. I cannot prove a connection, but it is in a word.
Fascinating.
The main objection to this program is the imaginary racism of the Democrats. Their anti-whiteism eventually led to black fatigue. So in order to keep the narrative going, the ever-failing Women's National Basketball Association, or WNBA, decided to call their fans racist for not liking a player, cheering for a missed goal. I, for the life of me, cannot and will never understand sports. I was once dragged to a football game against my will and fell asleep. It was so boring to watch. They say that it is a manly pursuit, but people pay to watch grown men throw a ball back and forth. And I honestly do not see the appeal. And even fewer people care about the WNBA. 2 weeks ago, which shows how closely I follow this nonsense, Angel Reese received cheers when she missed a free throw. Naturally, the NBA decided that this was racist, hateful, and discriminatory. For reasons. This is the same Angel Reese who has joined in the tradition of fouling Caitlin Clark because of her internalized anti-whiteism. See? It is annoying when it goes the other way. Moving on, the fans probably just cheered because they were for the opposing team. Or just did not like Reese in general. Either way, there is so much imaginary racism that actual racist attacks get swept under the rug. However, I choose to address them and correct the lies that the fake news spreads at the same time. More Hamas violence stateside. It was not enough for the supporters of Palestine to shut down campuses. They also resort to murder. 2 people were shot dead in Washington, D.C. while going to a museum exhibit. Sarah Milgram and Yurin Lachinsky were killed in cold blood by a supporter of Palestine. The 2 were about to be engaged. Lachinsky had already bought the ring and supposedly was going to propose to Milgram in Israel. Previously, most terrorists killed for political change. We are actually seeing a new trend where they kill just to send a message. That message is simple. We do not care what happens to us. We are justified in our killing of Jews. These people worship the loathsome demon named Allah and want to make him proud. It is even in the Quran to kill all the Jews and the polytheists, also known as Christians. This is their pattern, and it is only going to get worse. All I know is that when it comes to this killer, law enforcement needs to show no mercy to scum like him. How should this affect America's international policy? I choose not to discuss that at this time. But taking the money away from the schools that endorse these terrorists is a start. However, the money needs to be saved, not reallocated. Funding the trade schools instead. With the money that was saved by cutting Harvard's funding, said money is burning a hole in Uncle Sam's pocket. Reportedly, President Trump is considering giving this money to trade schools. Until I hear an official statement, I will continue to say reportedly regarding this matter. While that is a much better use of tax dollars than how it was being spent, subsidies are a terrible use of tax dollars. The reason that college tuition got so high is because colleges can afford to raise prices, since the government, via taxpayers, was paying for all tuition costs. Right now, trade school is an affordable alternative. However, if the federal government gives out subsidies like candy, it will become more expensive.
When subsidies are there, markets are not fair.
We need plumbers and electricians more than gender theorists. Granted, we do not need any gender theorists at all, because they provide nothing of utility, but I digress. Speaking of schools, children who go to government schools will no longer be mandated to take a certain vaccine. RFK gains Pfizer's ire. The vaccine for the China virus is unsafe. This is breaking news to liberals and Democrats, but it is something that the rest of us knew from the very beginning. Side effects include, but are undoubtedly not limited to, especially for those 65 and over, cancer, heart disease, asthma, chronic kidney disease, and diabetes. Do not forget that this drug was fast-tracked at the start of the pandemic. Secretary of Health Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has mandated that these drugs get more testing before they are reintroduced, if at all. Do not forget that the companies that make this vaccine have full immunity should their drug have side effects. Recall that these companies have never even tested to see if the vaccine stopped transmission. But we were told that the vaccine stopped transmission. How many executives knew that the vaccine would not stop transmission? How many executives knew about the deadly side effects? How many people were affected by this and other drugs that have been mandated? How many people thought to look at the drug? How many people assumed that they were just unlucky? All questions that will never be answered. And this is one more time that I wish I had been wrong. Speaking of medical practices that need to be banned, let us go up north to Canada. Canada slaughters innocents. Canada is a horrible wasteland of liberal abominations. People like me warned that countries like this were on a slippery slope. Just 2.5 years ago, USA Today issued a fact check saying that Canadian kids were not eligible for euthanasia. Skip forward to the present day, and they are eligible, or at least they may be eligible soon. So-called mature minors may be able to apply for euthanasia without parental consent. We cannot let them smoke, drink, or get a tattoo, but this is somehow perfectly fine. The only positive thing that I could find is that as of the writing of this story, it is still forbidden. For now. 30 years ago, this would not just be illegal. It would have been unimaginable. In 1993, Lois Lowry wrote her iconic novel, The Giver. In it, children are literally able to choose a lethal injection. The character Rosemary actually injects herself. Lowry wrote this as a horrible world that no one should want any part of. And now, The Giver is slowly becoming reality. I have no perky transition from something like this. Let us just roll the next story. The Deepest Deepfake. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is a tool. It is neither good nor evil, it just is. While AI chatbots are very practical tools. Likewise for the majority of AI research programs and assistants. Not to mention the very practical image generators. There's a new program that is being unveiled that might be terrifying. There are officially AI-generated videos that are indistinguishable from the real thing, created from a prompt. Like the early image generators, this AI only started to learn and is still expensive. But the potential is quite scary. There may soon be people with video evidence of them committing a crime that never happened. Will there be a program that can detect these things? Norton is already creating AI that will be able to detect scams. So, it is not that unfounded that we can stand up to it. But do not forget that the retraction never gets as far as the original story. However, new technology always breeds fear. When houses first got electricity installed, there was a prevailing fear that it would lead to massive fires. That did not happen because technology kept up with itself. Houses today are more fireproof than they have been in centuries. Will the same thing happen with spotting AI?
One can only hope.
Now, while we do need to worry about AI videos of crimes, let us go to the crimes of our own government, subverting the rules for illegals. It has been noted many times that the illegals are getting our welfare services without properly paying into them. Now, James O'Keefe with O'Keefe Media Group has shown us that this is just the tip of the iceberg. Their undercover reporter found one Deshaun E. Mack, who shared some interesting things. He explained to the undercover reporter in no uncertain terms that he would bend and twist the law so that his will was done, such as aiding illegals who should not even be here, by granting them aid which is supposed to be on a monthly basis, annually instead. When confronted, Mack just said that everything was a lie, but only after trying and failing to argue that he could not be recorded. This is exactly the kind of fraud that needs to be rooted out. The Democrats want everyone to have benefits with no practical payment plan. Because remember, even if you taxed every millionaire and billionaire at 100% of their respective incomes, you could run the entire federal government for about 3 months. The Republicans just want to get the illegals out of the system, and possibly return this power to the states. True supervillains do not work out of volcanic layers. They work in government offices. As such, let us look at an evil government on the other side of the ocean. All Hamas out, say Gazans. It is difficult at times to separate Palestine from Palestinians, and Hamas from Gaza. However hard it may be, there is a distinction. During the Obama years and Biden years, I did not want the rest of the world to associate America with either of them. And as you know, with Biden's lack of physical and mental stamina, it was even worse. But you might be asking what this has to do with Hamas. Recall that Hamas is the governing body over Gaza, and the Gazans want them out. According to CNN, protests against Hamas go back at least to March of this year, and another round is starting. Amnesty International has recently called on Hamas to stop targeting protesters. Not that a terrorist organization like Hamas would listen to them, but I digress. However, in authoritarian countries, where they start a war, take countless civilians as hostages whom they are unwilling to return, all the while bragging about said hostages and killings, you are not allowed to disagree with them. Again, Amnesty International is pointing out that Hamas security services are targeting peaceful protesters. And I doubt this means that Hamas is taking their donations and implementing a curfew. Now, while the people there still believe that Israel is committing a genocide without evidence, getting rid of Hamas would be a start. Then again, it will be replaced with another snake that will be just as bad. Maybe I'm just blowing smoke. Maybe I'm completely off my rocker, but that is just my opinion. And do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. But before you go, on the left I have last week's video, but you may also enjoy the video on the right.